So tax day is the day that ordinary Americans send their money to the government, to Washington, D.C. And rich taxpayers send their funds to the Cayman Islands.
October 16th.
Now, a fool and his money are soon parted. For the rest of us, it happens on tax day. Well, I will keep going until I get a good answer.
You don't even hear anybody else here. It's me.
You still haven't got over that yet.
Now, if you're worried about an IRS audit, you want to avoid a red flag.
Red flag.
Red flags will guarantee an IRS audit. A typical red flag is having any money left in your account after you pay your taxes.
Please oblige me in welcoming Erik Wiese, the neighbor from hell. The neighbor from hell, Erik Wiese.
Fellow Toastmasters, I'm going to describe to this story, and I want you to put yourself into the place of the person who's suffering from the neighbor from hell. Imagine coming home. Your car, which has been parked outside, has the bumper torn off. And as you look to see who could have actually torn off your bumper, there's a moving van that is parked in your next door neighbor's driveway. And you can see the scratches aligned perfectly with the back of the bumper and what the damage is on your car. So you go on up to your neighbor, knock on his door, and when he comes you say, I'm not sure if you're moving in and know this, but you just destroyed my car. And he looks you right in the face and says, no, I didn't. And you say, would you like to come out and see there's a bumper hanging off my car and see the scratches on your moving van that correlate? He says, you must be mistaken, I didn't do that. I said, yes, you did. Stop lying to me. Anyone can tell there's probably 5 people in the neighborhood who saw you do it. How can you sit there and lie to me? And he says, get off of my porch. I don't ever want to see you again. I said, I'm calling the police. I'm going to report you. Then he punches me in the face. I end up with a black eye as we're tussling on the ground. I have a broken nose. Finally, I run away and I call the police. The police arrive and they say, I understand you assaulted the guy next door. What do you mean I assaulted the guy next door? He stole it. He destroyed my car. I went over to confront him. He threw the first punch. That's not what he says. And they're filing a restraining order against you. You're lucky that you weren't shot. You were on his property. You were trespassing. He could have shot you in self-defense. This is the beginning of the neighbor from hell scenario. Then, what happens after that? First of all, the guy has a family that looks like they're starving. They're actually starving. And he brings in 4 vicious dogs that are out in the yard barking all day long. And when I look over, and I'm fighting, naturally, the legal problems, I'm concerned that with his 4 dogs, someone's going to get bitten. Like one of my kids when one of those dogs barrels through the fence. So both of us are going out there and swearing at each other while we build up the fence. And then I said, that's not good enough. I need a dog of my own. So I go and I buy my own vicious dog, which works out great for about a week until my dog ends up dead. And when I take him to the vet and I say, why is my dog dead? They said, well, he ingested some really bad meat. I don't feed my dog meat. I feed him the normal food that comes from the pet store. So I go buy 2 more dogs. It doesn't get any better. The guy has bonfires outside about once a week. He has this huge bonfire that has all of this right next to the wooden fence. The wooden fence is 15 feet away from my house. And when I come out and I try and have a party, he puts the music way up and he swears at me and says, I hate you! I hate you! I'm going to kill you! That doesn't sound right. So I fight him. I have the police come on over and try and turn him down. And what does the police do? The police go over. They get lied to. He leaves. And pretty soon we're in a lawsuit. We're in a lawsuit suing each other. And because we're in a lawsuit and he's saying that he hates me, he's taking M90s and he's throwing them over the fence. I think I'm going to die some night in my sleep from my house being set on fire. Things get worse. Things get worse. All of a sudden, he has this big argument one night with his dad, or his half-brother. And his half-brother and he are screaming and yelling. I could hear from inside the house. Then what happens? 2 days later, he goes out in the middle of the night and digs a hole. And I don't know what he's putting in the hole, but it looks to be the shape of a body. Now you might think, this is utterly ridiculous. How could this possibly be happening? In fact, that's what my daughter said. She said, Dad, this is ridiculous. This isn't a real scenario. It is a real scenario, and it's happening right now. Can anyone tell me the name of my neighbor? Anybody have a clue?
Muhammad.
Kim Jong-un is my neighbor. This is a metaphor. The bodies that he's burying there come from two different incidences. The first was the Pueblo. The Pueblo was one of our ships that in 1968 North Korea decided to kidnap and hold 86 people hostage before returning it. The Chiban is another ship that recently got sunk by North Korea. Those are some of the bodies. What about his brother? Recently he killed his brother for trying to contest leadership in North Korea. What's the fence that we have up between us that we're threatening each other with? The DMZ zone. What are the policemen and the firemen who keep going over and trying to install order? The United Nations, useless, toothless, have no ability to resolve anything. What about the M90s that he's throwing over at my house? Intercontinental ballistic missiles that are being fired over Japan right now, today. What about him killing my dog? I talked about killing innocent people over in South Korea. They actually sent a group of commandos over at one time to try and assassinate the South Korean leader. This metaphor is real life. And when I said this to my daughter this morning, she said, yeah, but Dad, you can't go and assassinate your next door neighbor. That's not a possible solution. So what is the solution? What is the solution? Is it appropriate to think about doing that with North Korea? That's a tough question. It's a really tough question. He is the neighbor from hell. Now, he has violated every agreement that he has made, North Korea. And I'll give you some of those. In September 27, 1991, North Korea says, I'm not going to have any peace with you guys because you have nuclear weapons, I don't. So George Bush removed 100 U.S. nuclear weapons from South Korea. September 27, 1991. I said, fine, we're going to get rid of them. Are there nuclear weapons in North Korea today? Yes, because what we did in good faith, they reciprocated in bad faith. It's that simple. But there's 35 pages of actual instances of them doing this time and time again. December 31st, 1991, both North and South Korea signed an agreement not to test, manufacture, produce, receive, possess, store, deploy, or use nuclear weapons, all the way back in 1991. South Korea paid attention to that. North Korea is not. In late 1993, the Central Intelligence Agency estimates that North Korea separated 12 kilograms of plutonium. The amount is enough for at least 1 or 2 nuclear weapons. They were supposed to shut down all their nuclear reactors. There came a time when their country was starving. Their country was starving, and they came to us and said, we have threatened to do all this stuff to you. Now we want you to bribe us. If you can give us food to save these starving people, we'll agree not to manufacture any more nuclear weapons. We'll agree not to take our nuclear technology and give it to Pakistan like they did, or to Syria like they did, or to Iraq like they did. The only reason that Iraq and Syria don't have nuclear weapons right now is because Israel dropped a bomb on them in defiance of United Nations efforts to prevent it. Or those two countries would have nuclear weapons just like North Korea has. So they said, you have to bribe us. So what did we do? We actually gave them grain. And this happened not just under one Democratic president. This happened over all of our presidents up to now. We got out negotiated. We got to the point where we were willing to try and bribe them. And so we gave them a bunch of food. North Koreans, 25 million. South Koreans, 50 million. They both had the same population at the end of the war. At the end of the war, they were the same. 25 million North Koreans have starved under communism. If that's not the biggest indictment of communism, I don't know what is. But let me give you some more. Does anybody know what the gross domestic product is of the South? It's about 130, no, it's 1.3 trillion. 1.3 trillion. The economic gross domestic product of the North, 25 billion. 25 billion versus 1.3 trillion. Those are huge numbers. Let's look at what it is for the United States. The United States has a $20 trillion economy. South Korea is 1.3 trillion. Do you know where the Soviet Union is in relation? 1.6 trillion. So the Soviet Union has an economy almost as bad as South Korea. But South Korea only has 50 million people, and the Soviet Union has 100 million. Can you imagine that? The average person in the United States makes $55,000. The average person does each year. The average person in South Korea makes $27,000 a year. The average person in North Korea makes $1,000 a year. Huge difference. They're like a fly, but a fly that stings. They're like a bee. They're like a bee because they have the nuclear capability to hurt us and hurt us badly, even though their economy is 1/750th the size of ours. It's a disaster. Interestingly enough, Russia has also followed in the footsteps of communism. They have the economy equivalent to about Italy right now. 1.6 trillion. About 1/10 the size of the United States. That's the lesson you learn. You follow these dictators down the path of where they want to take you, or like where Bernie Sanders wants to take us, and we could end up like Cuba or Venezuela or North Korea or Russia, poor, with lots of starving people, and at the mercy of psychotics. So, what do we do? What do we do with this person? Everybody else, every other president decided to kick the can down the street. They didn't want to start a war. We could have overwhelmed them easily with our vast military, our vast economy, our vast technologically superior armament. But they have the nuclear bomb now. Even though they swore they wouldn't, they said they weren't, they denied it, they lied, they tried to get us to bribe them, and finally we did. We even gave them close to 1 million barrels of oil because they couldn't actually function. Their society was on the point of civil war, falling apart, and that was going to drive too many people into China, too many people into South Korea. So we propped them up. We fell for it again and again. Have you guys ever seen that comic that's Peanuts, and Charlie Brown goes to kick the football, and Lucy is there to say, "Come on, Charlie Brown, come kick the football. This time I'm not going to take it away. Really, truthfully, I'm not going to take it away." And Charlie Brown says, "Oh, yes you will. I've been doing this for too long. I've been humiliated. I end up on my back in the mud too long. Yes, you will." "No, not this time, Charlie Brown, I promise." And finally Charlie Brown gets up the guts to go do it, goes to make the kick, the ball is taken away, and he ends up flat on his back again. That's what the United States is when it comes to negotiating with North Korea. Now, we have been led to believe that because we have a vast superior economy, that this isn't something we have to worry about. But I have some bad news for you guys. North Korea is now up to 8 to 10 nuclear weapons. And the ones that they just went ahead and used is a 25 kiloton bomb. Does anyone know what the kiloton bomb was that we dropped in Hiroshima?
Water too, something like that.
No.
Just one.
No.
15 kilotons. So theirs is almost twice as big as the one that we dropped on Hiroshima. You know Hiroshima, the one that liberals use to have us self-flagellate every year, to be feeling guilty about the fact that we won the war? They now have a bomb that's twice as bad as that. And do you know how many casualties that would cause if it got sent over here and dropped on downtown San Diego? Well, to drive it home, there's actually this great site that you can go to online called nuclearsecrecy.com, and I have a little map of exactly what it would look like when a bomb of the same size that they just used is dropped on downtown San Diego. And I will go ahead and pass this around, and one thing I want you to notice is the number of casualties. 57,120 people will be killed if they can get a bomb to downtown San Diego, and another 128,000 are going to be injured. So let me go ahead and pass that around, because this really brings home the fact that we're dealing with a dangerous bee. We're so much better than it, but it can still sting us, and if it gets us in the eyeball, it's going to hurt badly. So what do we do? What do we do about the neighbor from hell? Many of us say, well, their intercontinental ballistic missiles will only go 1,000 kilometers. So they can only hit the outstretches of Alaska. If we go to war now, only those poor Eskimos in Alaska will be fried. But unfortunately, it's not that easy, because they can put these in cargo containers. They can put these cargo containers on any ship they want, and they can send it to 8 different shores, 8 different ports throughout the United States, triggered to go off as soon as you open the cargo containers. But don't we have nuclear sniffers that will recognize these on the way? So you put extra lead around the cargo container, and once it actually docks and you actually detect it, it's too late. It's already in the port. Then it blows up and it kills all of us. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do with the neighbor from hell who can really, really hurt us? Do we wait for the problem to get worse? Or do we try and take them out now when we still have a quantitative advantage? Do we do it in a first strike? Do we do it when our entire armada is sitting off their coast and ready to go? When they're firing off worse and worse missiles, worse and worse nuclear weapons, and not just themselves, but they're giving it to other psychos around the world, like Syria and Yemen and Cuba and Pakistan. The leader over there hates us. He tells us every day he hates us. He has now threatened to give it to terrorists to bring to our shores so that they can have clean hands and claim that it wasn't them that did it. What are we going to do? Fellow Toastmasters.